Welcome back everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to play every single controller or just place the right smokes on Abyss. Before we get into the video, however, I want to remind you to like and sub so you never miss any future uploads and to get better at Valorant. Now over to the rating. For Astra, I give her the S tier on Abyss. I think she is probably the best smoker on Abyss because she can place global smokes wherever she wants and she doesn't really have to play in a certain spot. Switching over towards Brimstone. Brimstone being limited to only 3 smokes and also not having the greatest range in the game is kind of limiting to him, so he has to play either towards mid or fast rotate, so I've only given the B tier. Over towards Clove. Clove suffers a similar thing. They have unlimited smokes, but however, also not infinite range and also kind of forced to play it over towards mid. Switching over towards Harbor. I actually give Harbor the A tier because his smokes on attack are the best ones you can get on Abyss. It is pretty hard to get a better smokes agent than Harbor on attack. Defense is a different thing, that's why I'm only giving him the A tier, but he is still pretty strong. Then switching over towards Omen. Omen is pretty good on almost any map. And I actually give him the A tier, or the S tier actually, because he has fast rechargeable smokes, he can reposition pretty quickly, his flash is also pretty strong, and his smokes being able to be placed from pretty far away also kind of helps him. And then over towards Viper, I only give Viper the C tier because it is pretty hard to play Viper as a solo smokes on Abyss. Other than using her to play defense on attack, she is pretty hard to play in a right way because first of all you have to place the wall pretty precisely to cover all of the entrances off pretty in a right way, and then also using her orb is good on the spike, but other than that her orb isn't really that useful on this map. Starting off with defensive Astra smokes on A. On A you can place a smoke right here in the beginning of the round and instant smoke. This allows you to go over here, play really aggressive here in A main. This smoke is really good on an Astra, but not really good on most of the other smokes because it is only good because it is that big. Another smoke you can do on A side is a smoke like this one to stop the enemies from coming in. This smoke is probably a pretty easy smoke, and this smoke is probably also the best smoke you can use to just hold the site. Other things you can do on an Astra is to use recall smokes to your advantage, so just place a normal star right there and then recall them as soon as you think the enemies are not ready for you to peek, and you can get some free kills off of that. Other than that, there's not really any really good smokes on A side you can use to your advantage. However, you can use as soon as the enemies have planted and then your team is trying to go for a retake, place a star in main, use that one as a recall to take the site pretty easily. You can also use it as a smoke, but always save 1 star for you to be able to defuse the for you to be able to defuse the spike. This is really important because it is easier to hold somebody that is trying to play in main by not being inside of the smoke right there and not having anything block you out in front here. If you have a smoke right here and you're going for a defuse, the people in main just have a pretty safe time just spamming through the smoke and shooting where they think you are defusing. This is a pretty dangerous thing, so usually smoking on the spike is the better idea. Switching over towards B. On B you have a couple of options for defensive smokes. One is the classic one, you block off a main with a smoke like this. Make sure it is placed a little over towards the middle, so you block off both sides. You kind of give the enemies a little space right here to peek through, but as long as you are not standing like close here or in heaven, this smoke is pretty good. Another smoke I really like is one right here, and that only works on an Astra as well. If you smoke like this, you have the option to hide in here, let the enemies come in, even hold the people that are trying to come in from this side, and then you can peek out and get a free kill. This smoke is really strong because it gives you an unexpected off angle. Other smokes you can use is one top side. This one top side also allows you in a similar way to hold the site. If the enemies are coming in, you can peek out behind the smoke, get some free kills. You can also just hold the people that are coming in through here. And in general, you have a lot of options to play defense with a smoke like this one. And now over to the last defensive smokes, it is this one right here. This smoke right here allows you to play pretty much everywhere on the site, and it makes it really hard for the enemies to take the site. You can play inside of the smoke, it allows you to play backside and then go out to play retake with your team. And in general, this smoke is really good, but it really depends on what your team wants to do. If your team wants to go for a retake, using this smoke can be really good, but you can also just use it as a recoil smoke, because like that you can get this base and then catch the people off guard that are trying to run away. Other than that, again, smoking on the spike is a pretty good idea. For example, if they have planted right here in main, you can smoke the spike, and then your teammates can just hold the people that are trying to go for a spam on you. Same thing with planting back here. You can also just use a normal smoke right here, and then you can even get on top of this ledge and start defusing. This is in general a pretty good thing, and it will win you a lot of rounds. Switching over towards Brimstone. Brimstone has also pretty big smokes, but they don't cover all of the main area. So this smoke right here doesn't really work on a Brimstone. You can still place it, but it isn't as great because it also leaves a gap over here. But what you can, however, do on a Brimstone is a one-way smoke like this. Like this, it is pretty hard for the enemies to go in through main, and in general, it is pretty hard for them to take the main space. You can just hold here, especially good with a Phantom or an Odin, because you can then, as soon as you see their legs, just break through and get some free kills. And it is really hard for the enemies to get past a one-way like this one. The other smoke I recommend is one right here in main. Classic smoke, you can use that on almost any smokes agent, and it is pretty easy to stop the enemies from getting in like this, and then you can also combine that with a molly or something like that. One important thing on a Brim is that you always keep at least one smoke for the retake. Because if you don't have a smoke for the retake, it makes it really hard for your team to take the space, and also to defuse the spike. So keeping one smoke, you can use two smokes for side hits or even fakes, and then keeping the last smoke pretty long, unless it is really important for yourself to smoke yourself off, then you can use that last smoke. Other than that, I don't recommend using that last smokes until you are playing for the retake. Switching over towards B. On B it is pretty similar, but you have to kind of worry about different things. Because Brim smokes are smaller, you can use a Brim smoke in the middle, and it's gonna leave a gap on this side. You can also use a Brim smoke here in window if you want to take this space aggressively. Same thing also works on an Astra, but on an Astra it takes a little longer and it might be more predictable. You can use also smokes on top side like this, and then play in them, but it gives you less space to play in, and it is less effective than on an Astra because Astra smokes are just way bigger. And you can also see less. So if somebody walks through here, you will be able to see them, but in general, it is harder for you to play off of this smoke right here. And then again, this smoke right here is still a thing on Brimstone, but it leaves gaps on both sides, so it is pretty hard to get through if the enemies play already close up. For example, right here, somebody's jumping up, they can see through this gap right here. This isn't a thing on an Astra smoke. But in general, this smoke is still pretty good, but it really depends on what your team wants to do on the defense. Switching over towards Clove. Clove is probably the most liked and, in my opinion, actually the worst smoker on this map, because Clove has a limited range. For example, if I am standing right here, I have no chance of smoking B. So, for a Clove, using this smoke right here is probably the strongest thing you can do. You can just keep refreshing that smoke and make it almost impossible for the enemies to come in towards side. If the enemies have taken the space right here, so somebody is TP'd over or dashed over or just used some util and they got past, you can use this smoke to block them off from coming in. This smoke, again, it is quite a bit smaller than a Brim smoke and also than an Astra smoke, but in general this smoke will do the job. In general, just smoking main on a Clove as a one-way is the best thing, and then waiting for this second one as soon as somebody has crossed. You can either just refresh that one or use another smoke here in main if the people have crossed and they are planning to go in. Switching over to SB. B is pretty similar. Mainly you smoke here in main, in the middle. You're gonna leave a gap again on this side. You can also smoke window. You can also do that in any round, by the way, even if you're not pushing, to fake the enemies into thinking you're pushing. But it is in general a pretty good idea to just use a smoke right here. And if the enemies, if you want to push right here, you can use a smoke right there. Then again, this smoke here does not really work. It leaves a small gap, but it is pretty claustrophobic. But it is better than on a Brim, because a Brim smoke doesn't give you as much vision in it, and a Clove smoke gives you like more vision in it. And you can then go out, but a Clove smoke doesn't hold for that long, and it makes it pretty obvious if you refresh that smoke that you are inside of the smoke. Using the top side smoke is also a possibility. On a Clove, I recommend to use it on this side, however, on a Clove, because like that you have more space to go back to, you can hold the people from here, and it is also kind of a one-way and pretty hard to clear out. And again, you can peek out here, you can even stay inside of the smoke, and it makes it easier to peek inside of the smoke because you don't have that much blur. And the cross smoke right here also does work, but you have to worry even more about leaving gaps. If you place it the right way, there shouldn't be any huge gaps, but it can give some gaps if you're just placing it really quickly, and it is in general a pretty a thing you need to take a little bit more time for placing the smokes to make it perfect so nobody can see through. Harbor is, in my opinion, the most interesting smoker you can use on Abyss. You can use him as a solo smoker, but I recommend you have a second smoker to pair with him. A Clove works pretty good for that. To block off main with a Harbor, you can just use a wall like this, and then use a curve your wall over towards this. This also allows your team to go down towards mid. By the way, mid, I'm gonna show you some smokes later. And like this, you first of all slow the enemies as they are coming in. And you give your team the option to go in over towards this corner, go over towards here. And it is in general a pretty good thing as soon as you hear steps to use that wall. Another wall you can also use is one like this. And leave a small gap in the backside right here. This makes it possible for you to jump over from right here if you have the right timing and if you have the right jumps. But this takes some practice, and it is better used on, for example, a jet, because a jet can just glide over. But if you practice it, you can get the jump pretty consistently. Other things you can do on a Harbor is to just use the cascade to stop them from coming in main after you have used your wall. And if you use both cascades at the right timing, you can use one cascade, second cascade, and then wait for your smoke to be back. And then smoke main again, and make it almost impossible for the enemies to come in. You can also create cubbies on either side to dodge, for example, Soba util, but you have to think that the enemies also think you could be on this side, so you can even use that as a bait. For example, you play close here with a cubby right there, or you place close here and create a cubby in this corner and in this corner here as well, so you can hide behind it, let the enemies walk in, and then peek out behind them. In general, Harbor has a lot of really cool things you can do with him, but he is pretty bad to use on defense. On attack, he's probably the strongest smoker though you can use on Abyss. Switching over towards B. On B, it is also pretty hard to get the right smokes. What I really like doing is something like this, where I smoke over like this. So there's firstly a gap, no gap right here, and also no gap in the back right here. And it also allows me to even jump over here and peek through it. Or the enemies that are coming through and that are just trying to run towards side are gonna be slowed. And then they're gonna miss their jump up here. But this is gonna happen like really rarely, and I think I already had it happen to me twice. And then again, you can use a cascade to either stop the enemies from pushing main, or you can even use a cascade towards the window area right here and stop it like right here to make it possible for your team to push up and block off the window area. Another smoke you can use on a Harbor, but you need to get some early information for that one, is a wall like this one. And then you can even have somebody going up here, for example a chat, or just any other agent that has some movement util that can get up here, combine that with a flash, and you even leave like a small spot right here where you can peek through. If you get it the right way, you can also just make it through here, so it allows you to play aggressive right here in these close corners right here, and makes it pretty hard for the enemies to clear you out on the side. For the retake on Harbor, you have one really good thing. It is the Clove from Harbor, so as soon as you are coming towards the side, you have your team taking the side, you yourself are gonna wall off main, and then you're gonna use your Harbor bubble on the spike and insta-start defusing. I recommend you have somebody in your Harbor bubble, or you have the information on all of the players that they are in main, but it makes it really hard for the enemies to stop the defuse, because firstly, they can't really see you through the wall, and secondly, the bubble also protects you from some shots. It doesn't protect you from lineups, however, so keep that in mind. Switching over towards an Omen. Omen is pretty unique in the things he can do. You can firstly play in this close corner here as an Omen, which is a thing you can't really do on any other agent except for a chat or a chamber. And a smokes agent, as a smokes agent in general, this is pretty rare. Combine that with smokes either up here as a one-way, or a smoke right here to allow you to TP out, so you get your kill. You can then even TP out on top and then TP back towards side, or just TP in towards the main smoke and run away. In general, Omen allows you to play pretty aggressively, but you also have to think that if you die as an Omen, your team probably has no smokes left, and it makes it pretty risky for you to play in these spots as well. So using a one-way right here to just hold the side is in general a pretty good idea. And you can even spam through it with a Phantom or an Odin, or even a Vandal if you see somebody walking out. And then again, smoke main. And you don't really have to worry about saving smokes on an Omen because they recharge pretty quickly. And if you think, yeah, they are coming A, and you don't have any players on A, just smoke A main and make them think, yeah, there might be somebody on A, and they take more time to re-clear, and you might even win the round because of that, because your team has more time to rotate over. Switching over to its B. B is pretty similar to any other smokes agents. You can smoke close here.
Shadows traveling.
You can even smoke this spot close here. You have to do it pretty precise. Then you're gonna be able to play in it. But you can also just smoke like this.
Cover going out.
Make sure nobody is able to jump over and just play close here. So they're gonna try to jump in towards you. And doing that on an Omen is especially good because you can then just TP back and get into a pretty safe spot. And again, the topside smoke will work on an Omen as well. Just using that to clear out the people that are trying to come in, hide in here. You can even then TP back if you think they have all went towards side. But this one is a pretty risky TP, and I recommend you have a smoke here in window to stop the enemies from seeing you TP back over there. Again, window smoke also works pretty well. You can even TP into it, but I recommend you have a teammate who's shooting, else the enemies are gonna hear you TP and they might predict that you are up here. For a Viper, if you wanna smoke A, you can use a wall like this one and do something similar to a Harbor, because like that, you create two copies where you can play with your wall. If you put it up, you can play close here. You can even play close here, but this one you might stick through sometimes if you don't place it all the way right. And you still have the ability to jump over here to get towards the spot right here. Other than that, you can also just use your orb in main, like this. And in general, using your orb in main like this and then just using mollies to stop the enemies from coming in is a pretty good deterrent for the enemies to push in. And then switching over towards B. On B, you can use your wall in two different ways. Firstly, from right here. But it is kind of hard to get the second part right here covered by the Viper wall. There might be some lineups for that, but in my opinion, Viper is just not good enough of a smokes to even warrant that lineup for this spot right here. And again, I told you in my how to play Viper on Abyss video already, do not play Viper on Abyss as a solo smokes, and if you play her as a double smokes, you can find the lineup for this spot, but in general I don't recommend doing that. Other things you can do with a Viper is to wait in the beginning of the round and place your orb around here. Since her orb is pretty big, it should cover both sides, and you can then like play around this. You can also leave a little gap right here, and you can get some free kills off of that, especially with a AWP or something like that. You can also throw the Viper orb towards the window area, but this isn't too precise, and most of the times it isn't really worth it. Other than that, you can also use a Viper wall that goes through here. This Viper wall separates sides into two parts. This part is going to be pretty easy to take for the enemies, but the other part back here is going to be easier to defend for you. But other than that, there's not really a lot of good things you can do with a Viper on Abyss. Switching over towards attack. Attack is pretty simple on an Astra. You can use a star here to recall to cross over the one way if the enemies place one right here. And then you place your smokes, one in heaven and one either backside or up here as a one way. Do not place a smoke right here, because a smoke right here allows the enemies to play in a lot of different spots. For example, they can just play close here. As soon as you go for the plant, peek out, get a kill, and then go back in towards the smoke. And you give the enemies a lot of space towards backside. So you either use a smoke up here as a one-way, so the enemies that are playing backside are going to be one-way, and it's going to be harder for them to play there. But in general, I don't really recommend that with an Astra. And the best smokes I would use on an Astra is one right here, and then one backside. These two smokes allow your team to take the backside area with some more util, and then you have the side almost for free. You can then go for the plant, or just use whatever util or whatever your team has planned for the round. If you want to use a ult, you can use two different ones. First one is being one right here, like this one. This one right here allows you to take the right side of the of the plant area, and then you can plant either on top of the bridge or even plant back here. this plant right here is a pretty strong one, but you also kind of give the enemies a lot of space on site. And then if you want to go through this wall, I don't recommend even using that wall. So if your plan is to take the site right here, do not use this wall. The other option for a wall is one up here, and then use a smoke right here. But in general, I recommend you use your ult on B site, because with a ult like this one, it's still possible for the enemies to peek out here and get maybe a free kill on you. Other than that, I don't really think there's any other really good smokes on this side, so let's switch over towards B. Switching over towards B. On B, you have 3 really good options for smokes. Firstly, one right here, one in heaven, and then the third one right there. This one should be a given. This smoke is used almost every round to block off the heaven peak. And then, if you want to take the area right here with, for example, a breach stun or some other util, even flashes work pretty well, you can use this smoke right here in the back. If you don't want to take this space, you can use a smoke right here to stop the enemies from peeking from this really annoying angle right here. If the enemies are always peeking up here, using a smoke right here should be a pretty good thing. And especially if you don't have any util to clear out this space right here, using your smoke right here is probably better. By the way, the recording for the Astra ults got corrupted, but these are the 2 options. The one on the right is the one you should normally use, and the one on the left is just to get down the spike and then get off of the site and play false plant with util. And then one more Astra tip, since we are already on Astra, you can use her smokes or just her stars as a really good fake. For example, just placing them in certain spots makes the enemies think, yeah, you're going towards these areas. And then you can recall both of them, make them think that they are real smokes, because they can't tell the difference and only you can. But also, if you recall the smokes and you have a teammate that's playing close, always tell them you're recalling them, so then they are not going to be surprised by it. Switching over towards Brimstone. On Brimstone, it is pretty easy. Place a smoke up here, then either place a smoke here or a smoke here.
Fully smoked.
Pretty much the same thing as on an Astra, only that the one way on Brimstone is a little bit better than the one on an Astra, because it is like more round, and it is also a little smaller smoke. You have to kind of worry about the heaven smoke though. If you don't place the heaven smoke right, there's going to be gaps in it. Same thing with the CT smoke, but the CT smoke is not quite as important as the heaven smoke. So if you want to place the heaven smoke right, make sure it is latching a little out, like this, smoke. And then it should be covered all the way. The good thing about a Brimstone is that the smokes last really long, so you can take the site pretty easily. You can also use a smoke in here and in here. Launching smoke. And then use your last smoke as a smoke to re-smoke the heaven area, because most of the times the heaven area is gonna be the spot where the enemies are coming from most of the times. Don't use all 3 smokes on a side exec. Use either one here and one here, or do the one-way smoke and the one in heaven. The one in heaven has to be one you should use almost all of the times, because it is the most important smoke on A side. Switching over towards B, however, on B you have a couple of options for smokes that are pretty unique to a Brimstone. Since you have 3 smokes, you can do something that is kind of stupid, but it can work sometimes, and it is a caterpillar smoke like this, and smoke top side. This also makes it impossible or really hard for your team to take the space behind the smokes, but in general, going with smokes like these isn't the greatest idea, but it can give you some eco runs. If you want to use normal smokes, using one in tower and then using one here on top of the boxes is probably the best choice. Or again, using one back here also does the job. It really depends on what team comp you have and how you can clear out this area right here. Other than that, those are probably the most easy smokes to place. And you can always just re-smoke the heaven smoke, because that's probably the hardest smoke, or the most important smoke you have on this site. Switching over towards a Clove. Clove is pretty similar to a Brimstone, either smokes like these or smokes like these. Should do the job. It is, yeah, pretty similar to a Brimstone. This smoke right here is also a great one way, but in general, just smoking heaven and smoking that side should do the job. And if you get another smoke, usually re-smoking heaven is the best idea you can do, because the heaven area again is a really important part, and if it is smoked off, it is pretty good for your team. What you have to worry about, however, though, on a Clove is that Clove smokes don't last for very long. So if you place them pretty early and your team is going in and then the smokes fade, you know you placed them too early, and then you know you should wait. Wait for your team to be ready to go in, and as soon as your teammates goes in, you drop the smokes. this is in general the best thing you can do on a Clove. And don't just insta smoke here and here, because if you insta smoke as your team is still running in, there might be some util here close or even a smoke, and it's gonna be really hard for you to take the site, especially if you don't have any smokes left. Switching over towards B, however, on B in general, using the same smokes as on a Brim is also the case, using one in heaven, and then either taking site or using both of your smokes at the same time, using one here and one here is a pretty good idea. And then that's the one difference I see on a Clove towards a Brim, is as soon as you are at around this area right here, you re-smoke this spot right here, so you can take the rest of the site pretty easily. Because Clove smokes don't last for that long, it is worth saving the smoke right here if you want to smoke this spot for a little longer, so it is smoked off longer as well. And now switching over towards Harbor. Harbor is, in my opinion, the best smokes for attack, because he has a really wide variety of things you can do with his smokes. Firstly, you can use a smoke like this, and then send it through backside to block off the default spots where usually somebody is. You can then even use a wall, a cascade like this, to clear out certain parts of the site. And this is in general a pretty good thing. You can even stop it right here, because your cascade drops way faster than your wall, and it doesn't hold for that long. So taking the site with a cascade, blocking off this site, can be a good thing, because it drops earlier than the smokes do. Other things you can do, especially on eco rounds, is something like this. Block off the backside, and then take backside with a cascade like this, and re-smoke the heaven area like this. The cascade should go all the way through here. I stopped it early because I wanted to show the heaven smoke. It should block off this if you want to take the backside area later. Another reason why Harbor is that strong on Abyss is because it is usually pretty hard to get down the plant. And Harbor has the one ability that can basically guarantee you a free plant. Just throwing a bubble right here and start planting. Same thing can also be done on the bridge, just throwing a bubble here and start planting. It is almost impossible for them to get you off of the spike unless they are using like shock darts or things like that. And even if they are using shock darts, they have to hit you perfectly, and they can't really spam you to get away from the spike. And then another smoke you can use similarly to a Astra wall, something like this, to just take one side. And now switching over towards B. B is the hardest side to smoke in, I think, all of the game. And with a Harbor, you can get that in a pretty simple way. Just by standing close here, sending your wall up like this, and then giving it a curve, and then using a cascade like this to go up with it. Firstly, your wall blocks off this area right here, it blocks off the heaven area right here, and it makes anyone that is trying to peek in towards you slowed and a free kill. And if you want to take even more space later, you can use a cascade towards this side, and then stop it around now, clear this space out, and then even wait behind here with, for example, a flash, or just peeking through with a flash. It can be a really good idea. And it also allows you to plant the bomb in the best spots that you can. Firstly, either in this corner right here, or right here close. These two spots are really good because they are really open, and it makes it incredibly hard for the enemies to defuse without having a Harbor or a Sage that can block off some of the shots, because you can then just spam right at the spots right here at this wall. You can even spam through the wall right here, and in general this is a pretty good thing you can do on a Harbor to get like just a plant down. And especially also farming ult orbs is a pretty good thing, because if you're planting, farming ult orbs, that's 2 guaranteed ult orbs. If you then get a kill in the round, that's 1 more, and then you're already almost halfway to the to your ult. And Harbor's ult is also pretty strong to take the site. As you can see right here, it covers almost all of the site, and because it is moving, it is even stronger, and it clears out even more space, and it makes it pretty easy for you to take B or A site with a Harbor. Now switching over towards an Omen. Omen is pretty similar to a to like the Brim or a Clove. Just go up here, and then either use the one way up here,
Cover going out.
and or use the smoke back here, and then you can just easily take site. On Omen, you can also use your flash towards the other side, and then TP towards top side, which is a pretty good thing, and you can then clear up back sides with your duelist. That's why Omen is also pretty strong. And if you have to re-smoke, again, re-smoke up here, or even use a flash if you still have it, so the enemies that are playing in heaven trying to kill your planter are going to be full blind, and you're going to have an easier time killing them. And now switching over towards B. On B, I recently saw a really cool play in VCT, and by the way, talking of VCT, I'm gonna do a video later today where I show you how you can learn yourself by playing or just watching VCT games, and how you can use some of the tricks the pros use in their games in your games as well. What I seen in VCT was a smoke right here from Mako,
Cover going out.
a smoke in heaven,
Shadows traveling.
and then him TPing in towards this smoke right here. I just messed it up. Him TPing in towards this smoke right here, and then TPing backside right here. This is extremely hard to predict, and it works even better if your whole team is running in, because then it is really hard for the enemies to hear you. If you are up here now, you are behind the enemies that are playing close here, and the people that are playing close below here, or the people that are playing heaven, are most likely not going to look over towards you, and you can collect some free kills and give your team an entry. But if you are going for that play, I recommend you tell that to your team, so that your team knows not to really flash the spot up here as soon as you TP'd over. Other than that, again, using smokes up here, and either here or on top of these boxes is probably the best way to smoke on this side. Other things you can also do in a post plant, you can do that on almost any smokes too, is to smoke this right here, and either play in it or use it as kind of a one-way by standing on top of this wall right here. This works especially well on an Omen, because again, if you get spotted out, you can do things like these, TP back up, or even TP it up here without the enemies really knowing, and then you're gonna sow a lot of chaos, and you might even win the game because of plays like these. Switching over towards Viper. Viper has her wall, and her wall is pretty good at doing certain things, especially on attack to lurk. But if you want to play solo Viper on this map, which I do not recommend at all, you can use your wall like right here, and then use your orb right here in the backside. Throwing your orb in the backside is not the best idea, because as you can see, it isn't very accurate. And just using your wall should be enough for you to be able to take the side, because if you have your wall and your orb up at the same time, it's only gonna last for a really short amount of time, and it makes it really hard for you to get the plant down. Other than that, you can just use the orb on the spike as well, and then play from main with a molly as soon as the enemies are trying to go for the defuse, or use the orb up and then spray through the orb, because the enemies are going to be low as soon as they are in the orb. B is the only side where I actually don't really mind a Viper, but you also need to place the smoke pretty precisely in a way like this, to make sure it is all the way on the edge right here, else the enemies are going to have a chance of peeking out. And you also kind of need a smoke up here in heaven, which is pretty hard to throw with a Viper orb, and you're again blocking yourself kind of off if you put this wall up too early. It might be possible to throw this orb pretty decently, but again, it is a pretty short amount of time where your orb can be up at the same time as your wall. So using your orb as a smoke isn't the best idea. Just use it on top of the spike, and then throw mollies on it or just spray. And now switching over towards mid. Mid is in general a pretty hard thing to smoke right. You have a couple of really good options on attack and on defense. On defense, you have the option to one-way this box right here with almost any normal smoker, like any bubble smoker. And with a one-way like this, it makes it pretty hard for the enemies to come in towards the lower area. And this is especially good on an Astra, because Astra smokes are pretty big, and you can kind of hide from the heaven push as well. Other than that, I don't really recommend using any other smokes in mid as a defender. Or a smoke you can use, but it is kind of situational, is one like this. But again, people can peek out from up here, and a smoke down here just doesn't help enough. And on attack, there's a couple of smokes you can use. One being this one right here. You can use that on any smokes with a bubble smoke or even a harbor, to make it able for you to walk in towards this area right here and split A. Other than that, you can have a smoke right here to block off two smokes, two angles from bottom mid. But again, there's going to be this angle right here, so you have to either decide to smoke this part right here, like this, or even smoke a little further behind, or smoke this part right here. The reason why I'm telling you smokes in mid right now and not during the normal things is because the mid smokes are pretty hard to like explain with a generalized thing in mind. Usually, you're placing the mid smokes dependent on what your team is trying to do in the round, and this is always really different. What I like doing, for example, in my rounds when I'm trying to get a mid lurk, is to place a smoke right here and use my second smoke for the teammates, for example, either on B heaven, and then use some util crows here to stop the enemies from pushing them, and then I slowly walk down here. But in general, placing your smokes in mid is a pretty hard thing because you want to have at least one smoke for the side exec, and you don't want to waste both of your smokes in mid. And if you want to take mid with both of your smokes, you're not going to have any smokes left for you to be able to take the side later. So mid is kind of a weird thing, but if you want to use smokes in mid, always think of where the enemies like to play and just try to block them off. If you have made it that far, I kind of want to know what you guys think is the best smokes on Abyss, the worst, and how you would rate them. So please write that in the comments. And if you want to see anything else Valorant related, write it down there as well. I really hope you have a great rest of your day, and see you guys very soon. Bye!